Hey everybody, welcome back. So this is part 3. Just finished it up. About 40 minutes of work on it. So I wanted to do this quick narration and kind of go over it and kind of explain what all I just did. So if you haven't seen 1 and 2, go back and take a look at them. But what I'm doing right here, so I've been using the marker tool to lay in the values and that kind of stuff and kind of sketch in what I want. Then I went back with the pencil tool and started doing that as well to refine it. And that's kind of what I'm doing here, is because the marker tool leaves a blurriness to it because it's soft, and you can play around with the settings and get a little bit crisper look to it, but anyway, for the most part it's just soft. So what I'm doing here is using the pencil tool at first, but then I switch over to the ink pen tool and using it to sketch in the details. Now the reason a couple things to note here. One is I have the water basically turned all the way down, so that way the ink marks that I make don't bleed. They're more like using a permanent marker or something like that. The other thing is I'm sketching it in versus doing big swaths of color so much, because I want, again, that texture. Remember, I'm trying to build layers as we go here, so I'm kind of playing around with that, and that's what I'm doing right here, is sketching in the direction of the skin and so forth. So I'm also using the if you push the Alt key, you can select color as you're going, and so I'm doing that as well, so that way I can take the localized color around it and use that to blend in and kind of start softening out some of the transitions between light and dark, and really kind of get that feel for the way I want it to look. And I think it's again it's keeping the textures and giving me the kind of the look that I want. So that's what I'm doing, is just kind of sketching on it and adding in and refining it. So that's really what this is going to be more of on this video, is doing that. So, and again, just using the blending tool here and there to kind of help some of the transitions even out and smooth out. But even that, much like the marker tool, is going to soften everything a lot, and so I want to make sure and go back and kind of tidy some of that up as I'm going. But that's what I'm doing here. So the reason I switched to the watercolor tool is because by kind of adjusting the water saturation in it, I can then use it to lay in the darks. And the reason I wanted to do that was I realized I needed to push the dark values a little more, and I wanted to have this bleed slightly out to the edges, and so that's where I'm kind of selectively throwing it in there and letting it bleed just a little bit, and then I'm going to go back and refine it, kind of like what I was doing before. So but I just wanted to kind of keep pushing it, and you can see right here, like with that, the gray blended out a little more than I really kind of wanted, so I paused some of the water bleeding part of it, the water engine. Sorry, my brain's not working all of a sudden. And then went back with the brush and started playing it in there. That is one of the cool things about Rebelle, is that you can play around with the pausing of the watercolor bleeding, or the advancing of it and so forth. So you can really play around with the settings on that quickly. And so now taking the blending and blending it back to come into those highlights, because I realized I had a decent amount of highlights, but I just didn't have a decent amount of darks that really kind of pushed the helmet on top of the head, that pushed the nose breaker over top of the nose, and so forth. So trying to push some of those colors and values around. So I'm curious, what do you guys struggle with the most when it comes to doing this? When you're working on a project. I was talking with a friend of mine last night, and he had been seen the first couple ones of these. He said he's working on a project as well, but he just didn't know if he could throw stuff out there that shows his process, because his process is kind of all over the place. And I agree with him as far as processes being all over the place. Mine kind of is too, when it comes to me just trying to sit down and paint and sketch. Especially for practice pieces where I want to push myself to learn something new and try out something new. But it's like I told him, I said, the reason I'm doing this, and the reason I wanted to do it, was because A, push myself, but B, to help others, to kind of say, hey, here's what I do, here's the process of how I'm doing it, here's how I get closer to my finished result, and hopefully it'll help, people learn something. Hopefully you guys will get something out of it. They'll be like, oh, that's how I could do that, or hey, that's a thought. My process, because even though I have an art degree and a background in it, the majority of my art training is self-taught, because my art degree was more, let's paint abstract, let's do this, let's do fine art kind of stuff, which was something I wasn't really into. So if I wanted to learn stuff, I had to kind of train myself to do it. And I've had to go back and keep training myself to do it. I take all sorts of classes and stuff to constantly push myself. And so that's what I'm doing here. So hopefully, this will help you guys with some questions and thoughts of how you can do things. And so here I wanted to, because I've got the undertone and the underpainting, which is kind of this golden color, I wanted to start adding in some other flesh values. And so I'm starting to kind of lay those on top of this and build it up. And again, you notice I'm working one layer. I do anticipate probably working, I can't remember if I did on this one, but I do anticipate probably working on a couple layers, because sometimes I like to experiment and then flatten it out once it's done. But right now I'm just primarily working on one layer and letting the paints and colors and everything interact with each other. So that's kind of what I'm doing here. So right here, I realized I need to kind of, start showing the beard and the mustache and everything. So I'm using the pen tool again. The acrylic tool with the flat brush, which kind of gives you these striations through it, and seeing that. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and I switched it. And again, acrylic is another one of the water tools, so it has water in it. It will flow, it will smooth out, but it will give you some interesting effects that are different from the other ones. So using that to play around with it here. So, but yes, as going back to processes and stuff, it's we all do different. I've watched other YouTubers do things like Marco Bucci and stuff, and we all have an interesting way of doing it and trying stuff out. And so, it's kind of, to me, it's refreshing and interesting to see how people do stuff, even if it's, even if they're not narrating it. It's still kind of cool to watch what they do and kind of see some of their thought process, kind of be the fly on the wall. So that's what I'm hoping to do with these, is just kind of show you what I'm thinking, how I'm doing it, and kind of build on it from there, so that hopefully you can learn something, but hopefully I can learn something too. Every now and then I get feedback. Somebody will private message me and say, hey, what about this? Or hey, what about that? And I get a real good bit of feedback from them, and I learn to try something else, or try it a different way, or maybe I didn't see something that they saw. And so to me, it's very much a give and take. So but there is a little bit of trepidation to putting this out here in the raw format, instead of just saying, hey, here's my finished piece, when I get done with it. but instead, you know, throwing it out here so that everybody can see it. So again, I hope you're getting something from it. I know I am. I'm enjoying doing this and working on it. It's pushing me to do something daily, and which I think is a fun thing. So again, trying to lay in some of the hair and some of the eyebrows and stuff. So. And always trying to remember to work on multiple sections at a time. Probably should have zoomed out a little more here to get a better feel. But I kind of liked how it was starting to look, so I just kind of kept going with it. What I might do with this as I get to the end of it is string all these different ones together and then try and speed the whole thing up from there, so that way we can kind of see it from beginning to end as well, versus just these different parts. I do find it funny, though, that as I'm sitting here working on this and watching some of my process, I find myself comparing myself to others that are out there that do more portrait or do more painting, and how quickly they can get stuff done. And I'm like, why am I taking forever to do this? And then I just realized, it's because it's my process. So it doesn't matter if I take forever. I'm not on a timeline. I'm just doing this to do it. So I don't have to rush. I probably shouldn't. But and right here, as you can see, I'm trying to push those for those really dark darks, because some of my, by the way, if you're painting and you squint your eyes, and if everything blends together or is all one kind of value, it means you need to push through your lights and your darks. So that's kind of what I had done. I kind of squinted my eyes at the screen and was like, oh, you know what? I'm starting to push everything back to the same value again. So I wanted to go in and kind of start refining it more and more. But you'll notice too that as I play around with this stuff, some of this, like for example, the color I started to lay in over the cheeks and all that, I left so I could come back to it and kind of push and pull it. So again, it's all just little experiments here and there. As it hits me, it's like, okay, let me try this. All right, kind of like it. Let me think on it for a little bit and come back to it. Let me try this. Okay, like it, don't like it. Let me come back to it. So, for example, here I realized that he didn't have any eyes. So I thought, well, I should probably go in and give him some eyeballs. So that's what I'm doing here. But again, as you can see, jump into another section where I realize that, okay, the nose is not, shadowed enough to make it look like it's sticking out, so I need to fix that. The eyeballs actually have eyeballs. They don't have any pupils yet, but they do have them. So I'll come back to that as well. And that's the nice thing about the undo. I just undid something right there. So that way I could soften the shadows out. I don't use undo as much as I used to. I use it some, but I don't use it as much as I used to. So kind of coming down to the last little bit here for this. I think I've got maybe a couple more minutes left here on the video, but it's starting to develop some depth and starting to develop some real direction to it. So I kind of like where it's going, and hopefully you guys are too. Leave me a comment below. Let me know any thoughts that you have, anything that you see that I could work on, anything that you think's going well, that kind of stuff. So just would love to get any feedback, and keep the conversation going both directions here. So, but like I said, I'm really enjoying the process of doing this and learning a lot. So I hope you guys are as well. So if you haven't, like this is your first time here, like I said, go check out the parts 1 and 2. And come join us over on Facebook with the group that I have there. It's it's still a smaller group, but we're doing quite well with conversations and sharing different stuff with each other. So come take a look at it. But yeah, hit the notifications so you see when part 4 comes out. I'm hoping to work on that tomorrow and then get it up on here as well. It'll probably be a little bit before I get to the next part after that. Really kind of depends on how far I get for the next one, but as soon as I'm gonna keep working on this and try and get it all the way up to where I think it's done. So yeah, so just hit the notifications, that way you can get that. Subscribe if you haven't. Share it, please. Get other people to see my stuff. I'm trying to grow my channel and get feedback for what people want to see and what directions they want me to go with stuff. So but yeah, I appreciate it, and I will talk to you all soon. So thanks so much for stopping by and watching it, and give a thumbs up if you enjoyed it.